Gabby Hayes finally talks about Randolph Scott. Gabby Hayes was born on May 7, 1885, in the Stannards, New York, hotel. His full name was George Francis Gabby Hayes. In his family of 7 kids, his father Clark Hayes ran a hotel and oversaw oil production. He was the 3rd child. Hayes grew up in this kind of setting and was exposed to many people and stories that may have shaped his future career in show business. Hayes showed how versatile he was as a teen by working in a circus and playing baseball on a semi-professional level. These early performances and group classes probably helped him get better at getting people to pay attention and working with others, which were important skills for his acting career. Hayes married Olive Ireland in 1914, and the two of them were big hits on the vaudeville tour. They worked together in real life and on stage for more than 40 years, until Olive's death in 1957. They did not have any children. Hayes retired when he was in his 40s, but the stock market crash of 1929 hurt his earnings a lot, forcing him to go back to work. His luck took him to Hollywood, where he started getting small jobs and bit parts near the end of the silent film era. Hayes got his big break when he met producer T.M. Carr by chance. Over the next 6 years, Carr cast him in 30 parts. While Hayes learned to ride a horse in his 40s and wasn't born a cowboy, he found his place in Western movies. He became famous for playing grumpy, funny sidekicks who used funny words and phrases like dadgummit and concern. From 1935 to 1939, Hayes played Wendy Halliday, who was William Boyd's partner in crime, as Hopalong Cassidy. He left Paramount Pictures because of a pay disagreement and went to work for Republic Pictures, where his character was given the name Gabby Whittaker. Between 1939 and 1946, he played Gabby in more than 40 movies, often with Roy Rogers 44 times, Gene Autry 7 times, and Wild Bill Elliott 14 times. He also worked with Randolph Scott and John Wayne, with whom he was in 15 movies. Hayes became very famous, and he was always in the top 10 of polls of moviegoers' favorite actors. He was on one or both of the Motion Picture Herald and Box Office magazine lists of the top 10 highest grossing Western stars for 12 years in a row. He made a 13th entry in 1954, 4 years after his last movie. In the late 1940s, Westerns were becoming less popular, so Hayes switched to TV. He was the star of the Western show Gabby Hayes Show, which ran on NBC from 1950 to 1954 and on ABC in 1956. Before each episode of the Quaker Oats sponsored show, Hayes would often whittle on a piece of wood and tell tall tales. He also had minor roles on TV shows, including a few on Howdy Doody. Hayes put his name on Gabby Hayes Western Comics, which came out from 1948 to 1957 from Fawcett Publications, and a summer camp for kids in New York. Hayes stopped working in show business after his time on TV. 2 stars were put on the Hollywood Walk of Fame to honor Hayes's work in entertainment. One is for radio at 6004, 127 Hollywood Boulevard, and the other is for TV at 1007, 124 Vine Street. His name was added to the Hall of Great Western Performers at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, in 2000. Several monuments to him honor his memory. Gabby Hayes Days were held in Wellsville, New York, from 1983 to 1989. There were street sales, square dancing, and awards for best lookalikes. Gabrielle Hayes Lane is the name of a street in Wellsville. The Gabby Hayes Memorial Trout Fishing Tournament has been held every year in Kettle Creek, Pennsylvania, since 1969. It honors Hayes's memory and marks the start of trout season. The Roy Roger and Gabby Hayes Tribute Winchester Rifle, a limited edition gun decorated in 24-karat gold and nickel to honor their famous status in American Western lore, was also made to honor Hayes's relationship with Roy Rogers. Fans still loved and respected Gabby Hayes long after he stopped working in movies and TV shows. This shows that he will always be remembered as one of Hollywood's most famous and loved sidekicks. Blazing Saddles, a Western comedy made by Mel Brooks in 1974, paid respect to him in a way that was both funny and wise. The movie was known for its sharp wit and fun take on old Western tropes, and one of the characters was clearly based on Hayes. This parody character, a bearded, gruff, and enthusiastic townsman named Gabby Johnson, was played by actor and director Jack Starrett, who worked under the name Claude Innes Starrett Jr. Johnson had the over-the-top traits, raspy voice, and Western slang that Hayes' screen character was known for. The character gives an enthusiastic but mostly illogical speech to get the people of the town to support them. This was meant to be a nod to Hayes' famously crazy, rambling rants in many B westerns. As the town's mayor, played by David Huddleston, answers with genuine enthusiasm, "Now, who can argue with that?" and praises it as genuine frontier gibberish, the scene becomes pure comedy gold. As a clever way to show Hayes' impact, this scene turns his famous style into a funny Americana piece while still recognizing his roots in the mythos of the Old West. When Pixar made Toy Story 2 in 1999, it brought Gabby Hayes' story to life in a cartoon way. The character Stinky Pete, the prospector, played by Kelsey Grammer, is a clear tribute to Hayes in the movies May. Dup World. Stinky Pete is one of the characters on Woody's Roundup, a retro TV show with marionettes that looks like kids' westerns from the 1950s. Within the show, Pete is the comic relief. He acts in a way that is very similar to Hayes' sidekick roles, with strange behavior, smart cracks, and a rough-hewn charm. The toy form of Stinky Pete, on the other hand, is a surprising surprise. The toy is smart, articulate, thoughtful, and even scary at times, not like the silly TV character. The contrast between how silly the character is on screen and how smart they are off screen is a subtle nod to Gabby Hayes' own life, since Hayes was a well-read, articulate guy in real life. A far cry from the clumsy, toothless, and rude figures he often played. Pixar did a smart and layered tribute to Hayes by adding this subtlety to a children's movie. They recognized both his famous screen image and the more complex man behind the beard and hat. Hayes had an effect on culture that went beyond music and stretched to late-night TV. During one of the Mighty Carson Art Players sketches on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, which was the most popular show on American TV for decades, Carson impersonated Hayes. Carson dressed, spoke, and smiled in a way that reminded people of Gabby Hayes in this sketch, where she performed opposite the legendary Western star Roy Rogers. Hayes often worked with during the golden age of Western movies. Fans of the genre were made to laugh, and the sketch was a respectful nod to the memories that Hayes stirred up. The performance was so good that it was included in Carson's Comedy Classics, a collection of the Tonight Show's most popular skits that airs across the country. Carson's tribute shows that Hayes' image was instantly recognized and continued to make people happy even after he stopped acting. In addition to TV and movies, Gabby Hayes was recognized by the people of Wellsville, New York, where he had spent some of his childhood. Gabby Hayes Days were held every year in early July in the town from 1983 to 1989. The celebration of the actor's contributions to American culture and his roots in the community lasted for several days and was a lot of fun. People from the area and people who came to visit took part in street sales, square dancing, and events where adults and kids dressed up as Gabby Hayes, complete with 10-gallon hats, white beards, and vests with fringe. The event turned into a nice honor for both Hayes' filmography and small-town Americana and its culture. Over time, the event turned into Wellsville's yearly mid-July balloon rally, a bigger community party with hot air balloon launches and other fun things to do. Even though Gabby Hayes Days are slowly becoming less and less visible, the town still remembers and honors the star. He was connected to the town of Wellsville and was a big star in pop culture. A street in the town is named after him, Gabby Hayes Lane. There are many tributes to Gabby Hayes, such as satirical movie characters, animated toys, televised comedy sketches, and local events. It is clear that Hayes will always be remembered in American culture and entertainment. He was more than just a helper. He represented the tough, funny, and loyal Western hero, and people of all generations have continued to honor that heritage in loving ways, both by making fun of it and really recognizing it. Fans of old Western movies have been guessing for decades about the ties between some of Hollywood's most famous cowboys. There were two very tall people in these tales. George Gabby Hayes, the scruffy, likable sidekick with the gruff voice and beard, and Randolph Scott, the clean, clean-cut, stoic leading man who brought honesty and raw charm to the big screen. Even though they were both in movies about six-shooters and dusty trails, what their friendship was like outside of movies was a bit of a mystery until now. Gabby Hayes finally talked about his feelings about Randolph Scott in a rare and honest interview near the end of his life. This shed light on a friendship that was both complicated and deeply respected. Hayes had worked with many Western stars in Hollywood, such as Roy Rogers, John Wayne, and William Boyd. He usually played the funny or wisecracking sidekick to the movie's main character. He had been quiet for a long time about Randolph Scott, though. It was never clear if it was for business reasons or because the person wanted to. In the beginning, Hayes said that Scott was a true gentleman all the way through. Even though Scott played a tough guy cowboy on screen, Hayes showed that off-screen Scott was shy, thought a lot about himself, and surprisingly quiet. He wasn't the type to brag or draw attention to himself, Hayes said. He let his work speak for itself. He worked really hard. He always knew that his lines would hit the mark. That was the kind of man I looked up to. When asked why he hadn't talked about Scott in public before, Hayes said that their relationship was based on trust, not on the public eye. Randolph didn't like it when people talked about him behind his back. Hayes said, "And I'm not one to spread stories that aren't mine to tell, but enough time has passed, and people deserve to know what kind of man he really was." Hayes then praised Scott's unwavering commitment to acting. Like some stars of the time, Scott took each role as seriously as a stage actor. He'd get to set early, stay late, and help the younger actors get comfortable. He wasn't just acting like a hero, he was one, quietly and without a fuss. But Hayes also gave us a rare look into Scott's private life, saying that the actor had deep thoughts and quieter passions. There had been a lot of talk in Hollywood for a long time about how close Scott was with fellow actor Cary Grant. Hayes wouldn't confirm the rumors, but he did talk about how loyal Scott was and how he could make long-lasting friendships. Randolph was the type of man who would always be there for you. He had a code of honor just like in the movies. The most surprising thing that came out was the part Hayes said Randolph Scott played in his own career. Hayes said that Randolph Scott convinced producers to give older, stranger actors recurring roles, which helped Gabby find his own style and become one of the most recognizable faces in Western movies. Hayes said that he didn't think the West was just about young gunslingers, but also about old-timers, settlers, gold panners, and regular people. He knew I had something to offer, and he made sure that other people saw it too. During the interview, Hayes's respect for Scott was clear. He talked with a nostalgic fondness, pausing sometimes to remember shared moments that had been buried by time. "We didn't ride side by side much on screen," he said with a laugh. "But in spirit, we were always riding the same trail." Gabby Hayes's long-awaited thoughts on Randolph Scott show a side of both men that fans rarely get to see. They are not the flat, mythical characters that define the Western genre. Instead, they are shown to be real people with kindness, humility, and a strong love for the American frontier that they helped create on screen. When Hayes finally spoke out, he did more than just answer decades of questions. He paid tribute to a coworker, a friend, and a cowboy whose memory lives on in the hearts of movie fans everywhere. When his beloved wife, Olive Ireland Hayes, died on July 5, 1957, George Gabby Hayes was hit hard. His marriage to Olive, which lasted more than 40 years, was the most important thing in his life. Olive was not only his wife, but also a big part of his career. After she died, Hayes first went to his ranch in the quiet community of Tuca Lake, California, to find comfort and familiarity. This ranch, which was in a beautiful area close to the Hollywood studio system, had long been his peaceful escape from the busy entertainment business. It gave him a place to grieve, think, and be surrounded by memories of the life he and Olive had lived. Hayes was known for having a friendly and gentle personality in real life, which was very different from the rough and tumble sidekick roles he played on TV and in movies. He liked the peace and quiet of the natural surroundings and the privacy that the ranch offered. But as the years went by, Hayes's physical problems made the solitude of ranch life less practical for him. Eventually, he decided to leave his rural retreat and move into a 10-unit apartment building that he owned. This building, which was probably in the Los Angeles area, showed Hayes's modest but smart investments in real estate. This was an unusual move for many actors of his time, but it showed a practical side of him that went beyond his on-screen persona. Living in this smaller, more urban area made it easier for him to get medical care, socialize, and get help from neighbors and friends. Despite his fame, Hayes stayed humble and easy to talk to. Tenants and locals liked having a real Western film legend in their midst. Gabby Hayes's health got very bad in early 1969. He was taken to St. Joseph Hospital in Burbank, California, a well-known hospital that has treated many famous people in Hollywood over the years. He was admitted because of complications from cardiovascular disease, which is common in older people, especially those of Hayes's generation. Even though he was getting a lot of care, Hayes' health kept getting worse. He died peacefully in the hospital on February 9, 1969, at the age of 83. For many fans, his death marked the end of an era. They had grown up watching him in B, westerns with Roy Rogers, Randolph Scott, and John Wayne, where he was the perfect comic sidekick. Hayes is buried in the Hollywood Hills Cemetery, which is one of the most famous cemeteries in California, and where many famous people from the golden age of Hollywood are buried. His grave is near the graves of other film legends, and fans of old westerns and movies still visit to remember him. Although he had not been in movies in a long time when he died, Gabby Hayes will always be remembered as the iconic sidekick with whiskers, whose tough exterior always concealed a heart of gold. His death was mourned by both his peers in the film industry and generations of fans who remembered him fondly as a beloved fixture of the silver screen.